Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Michael Fillios, founder and CEO of IT Ally and a CDO editorial board member. And we are partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT CDO IQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Tony Mazzarella, Director of Data Governance from Voya Financial. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
It sounds like you've been able to get exposed to a number of people that might be influential or pioneers in this field and had to address some of these big challenges. So maybe you can just talk a little bit about some of those challenges or even those people that might have helped shape who you are today as a data leader.
Yeah. When I was growing up in DAMA, in data, it was really cool to like establish a relationship with some of the folks that have been around for a while, like, getting a better understanding of enterprise architecture from John Zachman, for instance, and through his relationship with DAMA over the years was unbelievable. Being in your 20s and meeting someone who invented something, right, and contributed so much, was really cool. And Dr. Peter Aiken, Laura Sebastian Coleman, Sue Hiens, some of my more contemporaries like Dara O'Brien, who's from a privacy perspective. I'm going to leave out so many names, but I mean all these folks are it's top of their game. Kathy Nolan, who was at Allstate for a while, Loretta Mann-Smith, just all brilliant people, like way smarter than I think I will ever be, right? Instilled a tremendous amount of knowledge in me in a very short amount of time. And, at the point when I started, there's a point where it was like me sitting quietly in the room, it switched to me actually being able to speak about things. And that's kind of when I felt like, all right, I was ready. I can be a thought leader here. Right. As long as I stay open-minded and I keep learning. And so, I would, without DAMA and without those relationships for people who are not from my generation and who, have been around for much longer than I have. And then some of the newer thought leaders that are my contemporaries that are coming in from different perspectives and on the leading edge of this stuff have been really influential in who I am. And from a professional standpoint, having those relationships and people that I can call when I have a challenge, right? That maybe I'm running into my first time, but I call up one of my buddies and they're like, oh yeah, I've dealt with that 7 times already. Here's what you do, right? It has really pushed my career forward way more quickly than it would have otherwise.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing, some of that and some of those names. And again, having been a CIO myself in Fortune 500 companies, today I work exclusively with small and mid-sized businesses. And along those lines, Tony, trying to bring that level of enterprise expertise and quality to these small businesses is really where my passion and focus is today. And what I represent on CDO Magazine's editorial board is the SMB focus here. And, I always love to ask people at your level of experience and given the global and domestic roles that you've had, what do you see, in terms of capabilities that SMBs can leverage today, to be able to take advantage of this wonderful, whether it be tooling or whether it be just process or capability that exists for data in their organizations?
Yeah. So, I mean, as I said, I grew up in small business, so I understand the dynamics very well. And I think that, SMBs are not, we often think about data management and data at the large enterprise level, right? But the demand, the drivers are still there. As far as the pressures for digitalization, modernization, operational efficiency, and all those drivers are there for small and medium-sized businesses. And so I think, the key thing, right, for any SMB that wants to get involved in this is really, you need that champion to start raising awareness on the value of these, and you need to be flexible and scope it, right? I mean, I tend to be more of a practitioner. I don't care so much about tools because, there's really, really expensive tools that, with the deep pockets with a large company, we have, but there are plenty of open source tools out there. And right at the end of the day, the value from governance is in the actions and the behaviors and how you're making decisions about data, right? So, you don't need a large budget to start to educate your executive team on the value of data and to start understanding the challenges of data in your organization, to build a conceptual model of how your business works and understand the data within your organization, and then create right-sized solutions, right, within those domains, within the subject areas of data and your key business processes to improve on those challenges, right? And once you get there, then you can start being a bit more innovative and reinvesting firms. I think it really comes down to being a champion, being a coach, and being really practical and understanding you don't necessarily need a big budget. 80% of what we do is human. It's about people, it's about behavior, it's about relationships. And, that really just starts with having the conversation and going from there.
I really like that. And again, I think what you're alluding to there is, sometimes having a budget and plentiful resources is a bad thing. We're dealing in the world of constraints as a small business. Sometimes you get hyper-focused, and, I think that's a good strategy for the reasons that you mentioned. You also alluded to, the role that you play as a change agent, right? And talking about this people side of the equation, not so much the tools and all of that. What kind of skills you think are required to be a change agent, and how are you able to do that in your current role today?
Oh man. So, you have to, it's a very good question. And I think to be a good change agent, one, you have to have the soft skills, right? You have to be able to tell a story. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to speak in, Saturday afternoon speak and meet people where they are with level of understanding, right? So, being a strong communicator, being able to tell a story, having your elevator pitch, is really important as a foundation, right? Because in order to be a successful change agent, you have to have relationships, you have to build trust, and you have to be able to read a room and understand who your champions are and who your skeptics are. And then you got to dig a little bit deeper and find out how they tick, see what's important to them, and figure out how you're going to influence, right? Remember, we rarely have, a tremendous amount of authority especially in data governance, but in any sort of change, right? There's natural resistance to change that comes from many areas, and you need to be able to overcome that. I think, the biggest characteristic though, and the biggest skill is really resilience and grit, right? It's so complicated, and you're dealing with so many different people, especially in a large organization. You're trying to implement change, not only this isn't just technology change. Right. This isn't just IT. You're changing business process. You're changing how people think about data, and so you're sort of acting on a lot of different fronts and trying to influence a lot of different people a lot of different ways. So, you really need to be able to get knocked down, catch your breath, figure out where to go. Right. Evaluate what went wrong. Maybe you kind of missed the mark on what was important to that senior leader, and you revisit it. Like I mentioned earlier, we had some organizational changes. Things weren't going the way that I really wanted them to. So we spent some time and took a step back and reimagined how data governance was going to better align with our new org structure, with the new disposition of the company and the trajectory that they were on, and how are we going to make inroads here, and how are we going to demonstrate the most value so that we can build that trust and, again, boost up the influence. The last thing is really going to be, you have to be purpose driven, right? Mm-hmm. All of this comes down to, you have to believe in what you're doing. You have to have a vision of what you want to achieve. And, as a leader, being able to align all of your activities and all of your decisions, to that is super important. Because the other interesting factor of data governance is not a lot of people know what it is, or they have their own vision of what it is. So you get a lot of people like pointing at you saying, I think this is you, right? And if you don't have that mechanism to be like, okay, maybe, but is that really important to me right now? Does that keep me on track for achieving my purpose? You could end up going down a rabbit hole.
For sure. Yeah. And it's an evolving space and an evolving role. So you're kind of developing things, like you said, so that authenticity, and that ability to influence become extremely important. And I presume when it comes to your resources also, they're somewhat limited, right? So getting into this discussion around a team and what does that look like? And in some ways, I used to talk about roles that I had as a CIO where others would evaluate me based on the size of my team. And I would say that's the wrong metric. It's the size of my influence. And I'm curious about this in your organization or past experience. How do you go about building a team? And what does that look like in terms of the skill sets you aim to have in building a successful team, driving a data program like this?
Yeah. So, I don't think you should have a small team to do, or a large team to do data governance, right? There's probably something wrong if your team is too big to do data governance, because again, it's a practice, right? And so, the key is having, really strong talent, but not necessarily data gurus or, I'm really big on getting people from all different perspectives and surrounding yourself with really smart people that understand what you're trying to do to solve the problem. Pulling people out of operations, out of the, pulling those people, frontline and employees that understand the systems, that understand the data and the business process is huge. That's and you can teach the data stuff, right? You can teach and educate them on the technical background. That business perspective is great. So, I guess my point is, when I'm building a team, I'm not looking for necessarily the best of the best, or, people with advanced degrees in data science, data analytics, things like that, right? We're looking for people that are really smart problem solvers, that have diverse experience. The more, the better. The more diverse, the better. So that, we can collaborate together, solve problems. I can learn from them and vice versa. Even to the point where, from a hiring perspective, I don't limit hiring to, computer science or data specific degrees. I love folks with humanities backgrounds, right? They're great at, lit majors are great with words and describing things and defining things. Anthropology majors are great at taxonomy and understanding how things are classified and organized. Those are all skills that apply to data governance, metadata management, and all those disciplines within it.
Very good. Well, we're going to leave it at that, Tony. Thank you for joining us today.
Of course. And my pleasure.
To learn more about CDO Magazine or to view more interviews, please visit cdomagazine.tech.